Welcome to the Job Shop Show, where we talk with the owners, suppliers, partners, and customers of custom manufacturers. Listen and learn the secrets of top-performing job shops, the tools, techniques, and backgrounds that have made them successful, all in the quest of raising the bar for custom manufacturing. I'm your host, Jay Jacobs.
This episode is sponsored by our friends at the NTMA, the National Tooling and Machining Association. The NTMA is an association of privately held, entrepreneurial-based, and family-owned businesses representing nearly 1,200 small to mid-sized machine shops and tool and die shops across the country. They have approximately 30 very active regional chapters that host local events, run apprenticeship programs, and provide other services to their regional members. As an association of peers, the goal of the NTMA is to help members of the U.S. precision custom manufacturing industry achieve profitable growth and business success in a global economy through networking, workforce development and training, technology, best practices education, advocacy, programs, and services with industry partners. To learn how your company can get involved with the NTMA, including how to join, visit ntma.org.
This episode is sponsored by Paperless Parts, connecting buyers and suppliers of custom manufactured parts. The Paperless platform is a secure, ITAR-compliant, cloud-based manufacturing system for suppliers that reduces the amount of time spent on sales, estimating, quoting, administration, and order processing. It offers seamless integration with the accounting and ERP software tools that shops already use, such as QuickBooks, E2, and JobBoss. Paperless Parts was founded with a mission to make manufacturing more accessible by streamlining the quote-to-cash process. Spend less time quoting and more time selling. Shazam! This is Jay Jacobs. Welcome to the Job Shop Show. I can't wait to get into our conversation today. Our guest is Bill Berrien of Pindel Global Solutions in New Berlin, Wisconsin. Pindel is a global manufacturer of precision machine components who has been around since 1947 and was acquired by Bill in 2012 after quite a fascinating career to that point. Bill's background is not typical of a shop owner. He is a Princeton and Harvard graduate, served as a Navy SEAL officer for 9 years, was a General Electric executive, and also ran a private equity firm-backed company. Bill's passionate about leadership and a huge proponent of advanced manufacturing. We're going to get into upskilling because without people, technology really doesn't work. And I think there's a lot to learn in how Bill takes his background and experiences and applies them to custom manufacturing. I have a feeling you should have a pen and paper ready for this conversation. Welcome to the Job Shop Show, Bill.
Jay, thank you very much. Very happy to be here. Thank you for asking.
Well, the conversation we had before the show started, I'm so excited to get into some of these things because you have such a different twist on them. But before I get into some of those, I want to start with a small question and I want to start with a big question.
Okay.
And the small one is, what time did you get up this morning and what does your morning routine look like?
Got it. I usually get up at about 4:15 or so. For whatever reason, got up at like 3:50. Woke up at 3:50 today. But went on a run. And actually, coincidentally, with it being month end, and we've got a lot of stuff going, and we want to push month end sales. After my run, ended up driving down to a lapping house, Johnson LHG, to pick up a bunch of actually ventilator components to get those up so they can get inspected and on the shipment this afternoon. So every job is possible, but that was this morning.
Okay. So do you typically exercise first thing in the morning?
Try to. I find it's number one, good thinking time, a little bit of meditation or something in the morning, exercise. And then just, end of the day, I have kids who are between 13 and 19, three children. And, family activities start after work. So it's a lot easier to get it in the morning. Yeah.
So You grabbed some parts. What time did that get you into the shop at?
I was in here. They opened up at about 5. You picked it up at 5:30. It's 45-minute drive up from Kenosha. So I was in the shop here by 6:15.
A slow start then, huh?
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
I had a feeling that you were still an early riser based upon your experience there. So here's a big question. After looking at your background and being aware of some of these significant accomplishments, I'm really curious to know, if we were having a follow-up podcast 3 years from now, and you were to look back over those 3 years to today, what has to happen both personally and professionally for you to feel happy about your progress?
That's a great question. So I think over the next 3 years, some of my key goals are to continue to build out the team, both training and elevating internally, and then maybe a couple of additional roles on the leadership team. So that I can focus on some of the things that I think I do better. I really like the sales and the customer relations front. And then I've actually had a sort of a revelation during this COVID period, especially around a surge in demand for ventilator parts, needing them very quickly, reshoring of supply chains to the U.S. And one of my takeaways is that there is an opportunity out there for expedited production of, let's say, machine parts, and could be manufacturing machine parts specifically, and maybe manufacturing in general. And so, actually working on a little startup idea off to the side of maybe being able to fill that market need. So more to follow, but that could be an interesting sort of side project for me and Pindel over the next 3 years.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What does expedited production mean to you?
So, I look to your past success with Rapid. I look to Proto Labs, and I look to some of the players in the market out there, Xometry and some others. For me, expedited production means the production volumes of parts. So not in the prototype space, but very, very quick turnaround, and possibly leveraging a network of, machining partners out there. So got some, different ways of thinking about that, and would be fun to have another podcast on that topic in 2 years' time to see how that's come along. But I do see some potentially some interesting opportunities there that I'm working on exploring.
Yeah, well, certainly there were disruptions in the supply chain that created demands for expedited production, and it sounds like in the ventilator world you were able to meet some of those.
That's right.
needs.
That's right. Yeah. And it's sort of fascinating realizing actually the parallels between my special operations background and this advanced manufacturing world that actually, became apparent in this, expedited ventilator production phase. So, just to frame that, here we were, mid-March, the ventilator push started. We actually didn't make parts for any ventilator OEMs, and now we're making them for about 5. But when that first wave came through, it was 5 different components needed, thousands of pieces each, all simultaneously, and all, starting shipping within a week. And it was, it jerked us out of what had been, a decades old sort of model of how we process parts and how they come through and things taking more time and all that. And it was fun sort of putting on a little more of a special operations hat of how do you break down the problem, delegate even more broadly than you would before, taking some risks, not customer risks, but, cost and production risks, asking people to, contribute more than they had in the past and in different ways. And so, interestingly, my time in the special operations, the SEAL teams, I would characterize that community as, the larger special operations community as highly cohesive teams, highly capable, enabled by advanced technology and trying to do outsized and aggressive things. And I actually believe that same set of words applies incredibly well to the advanced manufacturing world, where you do have small, highly cohesive teams, highly trained, it is a very skilled workforce requirement, enabled by advanced technology. You look at a Swiss machine. I mean, that is incredibly advanced and incredibly automated, but, requiring this high level of skill, and trying to do outsized things. You're trying to, punch above your weight as a team, as a business, and frankly, I think as a, US based industry, I see a future opportunity for the US to be the factory floor, the manufacturing floor for the world, and to reclaim that title from China. And I think the 100-year-old ecosystem that we have in this country, especially in the upper Midwest here, that ecosystem, the very skilled workforce that we have, and you start to layer on top of that even more automation, AI, things like that. I think the future is very bright for advanced manufacturing in this country.
What are some specific tactics you took from this small team experience you had as a SEAL that you were, as you said, pretty agile before COVID, but you had to become more agile. So what did you say? Okay, what could we do better? And I'd like to get some real specifics that some other job shop owners might think were valuable.
No, that'd be great. I mean, okay, so if you take a look at a 16-person SEAL platoon, and we would, group up into larger, task forces, 32, 64. But, you look at I was a platoon commander, so I was the commander of a 16 SEAL platoon. When you're talking about units that size, you need to have a tremendous amount of cross-training, tremendous amount of redundancy, because, your comm guy, takes a bullet. You can't be without comms. I mean, that's your biggest weapon on the battlefield. So you have to have, everyone else needs to be adept at that. Everyone else is adept at medical treatment, shooting, demolition. So there's a tremendous amount of cross-training. So I brought that mindset into Pindel because this was my insight to the industry, not having had, really much depth at all coming into it. But one of my insights is the typical model is you have one guy's the programmer, you have fewer setup guys, and you have other operators. And we adopted a different model at Pindel. Number one, we don't have operators. We have all machinists, various levels of training, and happy to get into talking about how our professional development program is structured. But number one, we have all machinists, just varying levels of progress in the profession. And that, varying levels means some of those machinists that might be normally running a machine, well, they're capable of, setting up some parts too. And, having the confidence of the team and, various levels of difficulty of parts. But also, going down to the typical model of you've got one really skilled programmer and all the programs funneling through them, through that person. Right. That's a recipe for, what happens if that guy takes a headshot, gets hit by the proverbial bus, where are you? So over my tenure at Pindel, we have aggressively sent team members to part maker course, feature cam. We're just bringing in Esprit, and already someone that is not one of the traditional programmers is actually our first guy going over to the get the Esprit training. So you end up in this environment, as we did in mid-March, of 5 part numbers, brand new to us, highly complex, due in a week, need to go through simultaneously. We spread those among 4 different folks that could program. We opened up, there's a necessary capacity. So programming, setting up, going, and we had, production parts anodized, about an hour away, starting to ship in a week. And it was sort of that aha moment of, if that was the industry or has been the industry's typical model of, long tenured, work your way up a ladder and, into, become the sort of the gatekeeper in some of those highly skilled functions. We wanted to look at it differently. We wanted to, yes, that individual's technical machining skill might not be at a level where, you're pushing them into programming where there might be missteps and they might not fully take advantage of it. But I think it's easier, giving them individuals that additional programming perspective and the knowledge there, actually lets them backward fill some of their machining skills much more quickly. And so that, you Jay wanted to talk specifics. I think that was really, really one of the specifics, but it cascades over into, okay, how are we going to do the in-process check sheets? How are we going to do, the CMM programs? We have a number of people that we're sending to CMM training. We actually just have a Zeiss O-Inspect inbound, and part of that negotiation, hey, we're pushing for 2 or 3 seats at the Zeiss training for that. Again, not just one program. We need to, you don't want that, magic bullet to take out your one person in that. And one of our philosophies is, over time, we got to work smarter, not harder. Because if you go to the, Gardner's Top Shops show, where they profile and they create metrics around who are the top shops, the top shops are the revenue dollar return to employee, not to machine. And if you extend that thinking, what you're really saying there is you want to enable each of your employees to the maximum extent possible with productivity enhancing tools. So our motto is, look, number 1, we got to work smarter, not harder. Number 2, automation is not your enemy. Automation is your friend. Because if you can program it, set it up, run it, troubleshoot it, maintain it, that's your ticket to a higher wage. I mean, you gotta embrace that. You gotta invest in yourself. There are lots of Udemy courses, Titan of CNC, YouTube videos, and you need to let the company invest in you. So, yeah, a little long-winded answer, but it's a little philosophy.
I love it, and I want to get back to a few of those things, but just to help the listener understand the context of what we're talking about, can you just tell us about Pindel, what you do, the size, number of people, equipment, just some of the basics real quick?
Yep, great. So actually, you mentioned a Pindel Global Solutions at the beginning. It's actually a Pindel Global Precision.
I'm sorry.
Nope, all good. So company was founded in 1947, downtown Milwaukee. Multi-spindle screw machines. So it always had, Acme Gridleys, actually in the basement of a building down there, downtown Milwaukee. Came out just west here in New Berlin, I guess in the 60s, mid 60s. Still all multi-spindles until the 90s, got into CNC. But the traditional model was blanking off parts on the multi-spindle and then taking it over to the CNCs for secondary and tertiary operations. The multi-spindles, which we have 26 multi-spindles, they're in their own plant. What a tribute to human ingenuity. I mean, it is, the fact that you can take a electric motor and through cams and gears be powering, 8 spindles, tooling going in, timing, and the volumes are terrific. So that is absolutely a great stool, one of the legs of the Pindel stool, that our industrial customers love it, because you can get that kind of complexity at volume, at price. It's great. And we have another facility that's probably about 40 CNCs and an assembly department. We just had delivered a Tsugami S206. So now we have 12 CNC Swiss machines. And part of our evolution, I mentioned the prior model of blanked off the multi-spindles, secondary ops and all that. We're shooting for parts complete. So the multi-spindles are largely doing multi-spindle only parts, and the multi-axis lathes and the Swisses, those are doing complex parts complete coming off there. So we've really pulled off of a lot of our machines that were secondary and tertiary ops, and those have been devoted to primary ops for other parts. So now we have give you the high level metrics. 2 facilities within a block of each other, total of about 95,000 square feet between the 2 plants, 65 employees, non-union, 2 shifts, 5 8s, 4 10s, as well as some creative thinking around some Saturdays, even some Sundays, how we get the team's help for those. About 30% of our business goes outside of the US, and we're actually on the cusp of incubating another brand to be called Liberty Precision. That is going to be the brand for our CNC building. So Pindel is the overall, Pindel Global Precision, the overall global company, and Liberty is going to be the high precision CNC division of that in one of the buildings. Try to appeal to the medical and aerospace markets, because we're hopefully 2 months away from our AS9100 certification.
Why incubate a new brand and not just keep running with Pindel?
Well, it's interesting. So in our brochures, we lay out this spectrum of capabilities, and from multi-spindles on one side to programmable B-axis, Swiss, Tsugami Swiss, CMM, O-Inspect, all that on the other end. And what we found was that if we get a customer on either extreme of that spectrum, the mere fact that we have capabilities on the other end of the spectrum is a turnoff. We would get the medical and the aerospace folks, and they would see, they still have multi-spindles. They're not going to be able to meet the tight tolerances and the part accountability and all of that we need in our industry. Whether that's right or wrong, that was the feedback we're getting. Then you get the hardcore industrial folks who love the multi-spindles. That's where they want to have all their business, and they look across at the other end of the spectrum and they go, wow, all that whiz bang stuff, those parts are going to be expensive. Let's move on. So, that's the reason, trying to do a little bit of marketing jujitsu.
Yeah, I think it makes sense, because I kept at Rapid, I just called it Rapid as a overarching name, but we enabled the salespeople to go in and sell sheet metal specifically as Rapid Sheet Metal, machining specifically as Rapid Machining, and wire harnesses and cable assemblies, we had Rapid Wire Cable, because we didn't necessarily have the "we won't do business with you" argument, but it confused folks. And I think if you have a shop with a lot of different capabilities, I don't know what the solution is for every shop, because the situations are different, but if you're trying to sell a buyer a specific service, or the buyer is looking for a specific service, they can get easily confused, as you said, and have misconceptions about what all the other things do or don't do for them.
Yep, I agree.
So being really tight with branding and marketing, I like that idea. I think it's going to pay off for you.
Well, thanks, Jay. And I actually was looking at and admiring your rapid site. I went into the internet's Wayback Machine.
Sure.
I think it was pegged at like maybe 2017, 2016 when I was looking at, it takes those snapshots of the websites. And I thought, I really liked the website then and how you segmented, the rapid machining, rapid sheet metal, the wire harnesses. I think that was good. Yeah, to that point, it's different customers have different needs, and you want to think that you want them to think and experience that they are they fit solidly in your in your wheelhouse. And and it's not just for you, it wasn't just a marketing play, and for us it's not a marketing play. It would be a different thing if we had all in one facility, and you might get that crossing a culture.
I think that's an interesting observation. We had separate facilities because what I found is that the mindset for prototype and the mindset for production were like oil and water, and that they had to be separated. Otherwise, you would make people's brains fry. But that said, one thing that I would have liked to have done better is we didn't have a formal mechanism to bring people, say, from sheet metal into machining. And what I mean by that is perhaps the customer service folks or the estimators.
Right.
The ability that I think what you're getting at, what you talked a lot about before, was culture. And that's a way to make sure the culture is cross-trained and that the different groups don't view the other as a competitor, or at least it's friendly competition.
Right.
So there's a lot of opportunities to work with your team there, but you have to be conscious that you do need to separate them for specific tasks. Yeah, that probably goes back to the military, right?
Well, yeah, it goes back to the military. It also, if you looked at, Clay Christensen's, Innovator's Dilemma, and he was a professor of mine in business school. And, one of his takeaways from the Innovator's Dilemma is you need to have some of that cultural separation, especially when you're trying to do different things. I mean, his was more, incumbent legacy versus, a disruptive innovation. You need to separate that because otherwise the innovation group gets, strangled in the crib. But I think it applies equally here. I mean, our overarching motto is we want to do complex, difficult parts at medium volume. And complex, difficult is tolerances, features, dimensions, and lead time. And that we're pushing into that more of how do we lower our lead times. Again, that's both plants and, both multi-spindle and CNC, and then medium volume. Each of the two plants have different, sort of what would be considered medium volume. Medium volume on a multi-spindle is 20,000 to 300,000 or 400,000. And on a CNC, even a Swiss, you're talking medium volume is 1,000 to 40,000. And what we're experiencing right now, with lower oil and gas and, some customers softer and others, especially we've made this pivot over on the medical and ventilators and all that. We're actually, swapping some of the guys, back and forth between the plants, depending on the shift. Because again, they're all machinists. And the multi-spindle team, again, they are closest to the cut of how that tool is cutting the material. And, it's always fascinating to see them come over to the CNC and, be bringing in that form tool technology
Mm-hmm.
Different thoughts on, how to, cut it in a more mechanical way that's not CNC controlled, but then having that capability, and then vice versa, the learning of the CNC team to be able to go over and, experience that, how the material is being cut and how tools need to be adjusted. And again, how they're using foam tools and shave tools and things. It's neat. It's neat to see. Yeah.
Yes. And it sort of an in-house apprenticeship, because both from an age perspective, but also just that experience.
Agreed.
I want to go back. You mentioned that you were lucky enough to have Clay Christensen as a professor, and that's I've read some of his stuff. Pretty remarkable fellow. What would you say to fellow Harvard Business School graduates about manufacturing? Why would they want to think about getting involved in the manufacturing field?
Well, look, number one, I believe, if we don't retain the ability as a country to, make things and to be able to move ideas into, physical goods, that, the success is not long for the country. So I think, number one, someone from a patriotic, or sort of just looking at your place in the world, your manufacturing is, a critical skill and industry to maintain. So there's number one, that element of it. Number two, I think the landscape is really changing. That from a companies like ours, our portion of the market, it's pretty fragmented, and you don't have really big movers. And so I think you have opportunities there to, number one, exercise leadership skills. Number two, strategic skills. There's, I think, the future, again, bright. I think there's financial opportunity that, I really enjoy it. As you mentioned in your intro, running two private equity, helping run two private equity backed companies. They're both in services. One healthcare, one financial services, but that I've got a book of what is it, like lessons learned, of guidance on running your company like it's owned by a private equity firm, and I think there's a lot of good discipline there. But again, going back to an earlier point about the future of manufacturing, I think you take the ecosystem that exists. And again, we machine, but we use heat treaters, platers, grinders. I mentioned the lapping house that I was down at, all within half an hour. So, you look at the Midwest, but it really speaks to the whole country. This awesome ecosystem that goes back 100 years. You've got a skilled workforce with, the digitization of manufacturing, providing this great opportunity to use video game like skills and thinking now in a production environment. You look at a Spree program, CAM program simulation. It is, it's a video game in a way, and it's underpinned by, a lot of technical knowledge, but it's not your grandfather's style of manufacturing. No. It's not your father's style of manufacturing.
We used to put out ads, like to play video games.
Right.
Come talk to us, and it worked. That the skills are transferable.
That's right. To have, what is it? Quake or one of those 3D environment. Thinking around, lots of moving parts. Well, 3D environment speaks to a program coming off a Tsugami programmable B Swiss machine. How do you think of all the interactions? What's simultaneous? So, so in answer to your question, you didn't get a lot of HBS grads necessarily going into manufacturing. just as you don't get a lot going into sales, which I always think is a mistake, because sales is this awesome world and value creating world where it's about understanding your customer, what solutions they need, what you can offer. But I think I think it's an exciting future that I would encourage business school grads to think differently about.
What we're seeing at Paperless Parts is that a number of PE firms are either moving into rolling up manufacturing or just being formed to roll up manufacturing companies, 5 to 20 plus $1 million shops. And they really see that the fragmentation, much like many of the other industries out there, the waste management, the automation, as you said, the digitization and the data that is starting to become available allow you to systematize a lot of what was not able to be done before. And
Right.
I think we're at the cusp. And if you are a graduate of HBS, you are a smart person and manufacturing needs you. So think about us.
All good. Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, that digitization, I mean, the circle is getting tighter and tighter. I mean, you look at, we take a SolidWorks CAD model, import it into a Esprit CAM program, moved over to SolidWorks inspection that generates the inspection sheets. Then over to the CMM, the Calypso CMM program. We have machine metrics that we're piloting on 20 machines on our floor. So real-time data.
Yep.
And I'm working with Lou Zhang, their machine metrics data scientist, on how do you potentially leverage that data to do predictive tool failure? Because it's just a label data problem, some supervised machine learning there. You work through those, then you work, the inspection system's coming right off. So the circle is tightening. And I just tend to think that those who can be part of the tightening sooner, hopefully they're the ones that can lead some of the roll up and lead some of the scaling in manufacturing.
You mentioned that 30% of your business comes from outside the U.S. Is that is that shipments, revenue of parts going outside the U.S., but maybe being purchased within the U.S., or how does that all work, and how did you make that happen?
Well, I can't say we made it happen. I mean, it over the 70 years of Pindel, started with some U.S. only OEMs that globalized, and maybe it's assembly plants in Mexico, or stuff in Canada or over in Europe, and we followed those customers on their global journey. So that's led to that piece of it. Now, Pindel, we're in the process of developing some machining affiliates in down in Mexico City, another one over in the Netherlands, and then one that we've had a long time relationship with over in China. Don't know exactly where that leads. It's the opportunity to share quotes, share ideas, get access to the EU, Asia markets, things like that. But it's in the Pindel Global Precision sense, it's the global customer complement, or a global production complement to a global customer legacy. So it's not really time intensive for the team, but it's another sort of arrow in your quiver that you can bring to perhaps a global OEM, saying, look, we can make some parts here at Pindel facilities in the US. We've got an affiliate down in Mexico that we're we're developing. In general, we don't, the machining down in Mexico, they're much more experienced and adept at assembly. The machining isn't developed, but we're trying to develop an affiliate down there, or continue to develop. I mean, they've already existed for a while, and then very sophisticated affiliate over in the Netherlands. So.
I want to get back a little bit between the similarities or dissimilarities between the military and manufacturing. And before we were talking about the similarities back in the 60s and when the military had the draft. And the military moved to an all-volunteer force. I think it was in the 70s, and you observed the change that the military had to undergo that didn't necessarily flow into manufacturing. Can you just elaborate on that, to talk about that concept?
Sure. Yeah, it's an insight I've had along the way that I think could help the industry in the future. So my insight would be that up until the late 60s, early 70s, that manufacturing and the military were largely in line. And that being in line, sort of characterized by, on the military side, you had, all draft, you had the draft, and that's how, people weren't long tenured. They would come into the service, initial level of training, typically move out. You didn't have a lot of professional development, in that kind of a model. You didn't have senior non-commissioned officer academies. You didn't have rigorous selection for advancement of your non-commissioned officer ranks. And I think that was the biggest undeveloped gap in that period, I would say, was on the non-commissioned officer. So, sergeants, chiefs, in all the services. Similarly, in the military, similarly in manufacturing, people there was a lot of movement around. You didn't necessarily stay with a company that long. There weren't structured professional development programs. It was smaller shops. A lot of what you learned was specific to that shop, so there wasn't a lot of mobility. There wasn't a way you could sort of carry your resume to other companies or other regions, but the break in that cycle was when the military went to an all-volunteer force. Very different model, where it's very difficult, and it's become even more so, very difficult to get into the military. Very high standards there of intelligence and conduct and ethics and all those things. But once you're in, terrific professional development programs, where especially on the NCO Corps, you are taking someone through their 20, 30-year career and having rigorous gates for advancement, advanced training and leadership and technical skills. I talk about how, technical the military has gotten in the weapons systems and all that. Unfortunately, at that same point, early 70s, the manufacturing stopped tracking to that model. They continued on their other path, but I'd say even got a little more challenging because you had globalization, you had, not a lot of investment in training, jobs being shifted overseas, different regions, different things like that. And you got a little bit of that sort of moniker that fortunately has gone away, but in those days, the dark, dirty, and dangerous was sort of characterized manufacturing.
Sure.
Now I see, over the past 10 years and accelerating, manufacturing getting its legs back. That, going back to, realization of the ecosystem, the opportunities of automation, CNC Swiss, multi-axis lathe, 5-axis mill, all of that. You've got these professional development programs. You're seeing it in the high schools. You're seeing it in technical colleges, all of that. And you're getting professional development paths that can carry an individual through, through a career. And, one of our beliefs at Pindel is that everyone is looking for and deserves a profession. That a profession should not be the province of lawyers, accountants, and doctors, those typical sort of white collar workforce. No, I mean, everyone is looking for a profession. And by profession, it's something that, what they're devoting their time to is going to accrue value, that it be valuable as it is, that it be enduring. It's not here today, come tomorrow, and that it be transferable. That, if you leave your machining role at company A, you should be able to easily convince company B of what your value add is, and that profession should follow you. And to that end, at Pindel, we've created what we call the Pindel Professional Development Program. So we have 6 levels of machinist, 6 levels CNC, 6 levels of multi-spindle machinist. Each one of those levels, we have required courses, online courses through Tooling U. So, level 1, these are the expected classes. Level 2, on and on. We have at each level required on-the-job, sort of skill fluency demonstrations. So not just retrain, check the box. No, are you able to demonstrate that for a level 3 multi-spindle machinist, there are some rigorous skills you need to demonstrate you can do. Similarly on the CNC side. And the last part is on the transferability. We've integrated in NIMS credentialing. So I think it's like National Institute of maybe Metalworking Science. And they have 3 levels of CNC credentials, 3 levels of multi-spindle credentials, as well as industrial maintenance and quality. They now have a programming, a CAM programming credential.
So what is the name of that organization again?
Well, the acronym for sure is NIMS.
Okay.
November, India, Michael Sierra. It's something like National Institute of Metalworking Science, and they have.
And so their role is to provide a standardization of what skills mean for a role.
They provide standardization of the skills, and then they provide a requirement if you want to credential someone at that level of third-party confirmation that the individual has that.
So this is something the machinist can carry to another employer if something happened to Pindel, because of course they would never leave you.
That's right. But in their best interest, you want them to have that professional, because it helps on the come in too. When you're talking to high school students and all that, and most importantly their parents. I mean, again, everyone wants a profession, and most importantly, parents want a profession. They want to know that you're getting into this profession track that is going to be, again, accrue value. It's going to be enduring, and you're not going to be beholden just to Pindel or just to XYZ manufacturing company. So that's part of the sales pitch is to the parents. And so those are the elements that we go for.
Does Pindel pay for all the courses and all this stuff that's absorbed by you, not the team member or?
Nope, absolutely. And if Jay, I could segue on that note would it be okay to segue into some thoughts on upskilling?
I would love to have you do that, but I want to ask you though.
Okay, good.
First, and we're going to get there. The mindset of a shop owner. So you are spending all this money to help your team members gain skills, which they can be credentialed to and they can carry with them. But as you help them improve their skills, you make them more valuable and they should be paid more. And do you pay your team members more once they get those skills and credentials?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, our motto is more value created more value captured. So, if the individual can create more value through their, time, effort, and attention, we want them to capture more value, both in terms of wage growth, bonuses, incentives. We actually launched what we call here the 250-50 plan. So we launched this last year. 250-50. So rolled it out to the team, and the goal there is in 4 years we want to double the size of the business. So that's the two. We want to increase by 50% the gross profit percentage of the business. So if you're doubling it, you don't want to. It means every one on the payroll needs to contribute more value, as opposed to double the business, double the headcount, which we don't want to do. So everyone needs to contribute more, and also you migrate into higher margin parts, and trim the laggards, and try to invest in the good ones. And then the last 50%, the last 50 of the 250-50 is over the next 4 years, if those first two work, we would like to increase by 50% everyone's compensation. Whether that's, it's not necessarily on wage, it's incentives, it's shared upside, elements like that. But that's only possible, if you run the models, that's only possible if you do the first two well. And to that end, you're on that journey. You are asking people to, in order to achieve those goals, to create more value, which is, create more value. It's either, increasing the time they devote, or it's increasing the value per unit of time. And that requires the training, and that requires the investment in the technology, whether it's Swiss or CMM, or, it's down to the, how do you increase the capability of your shipping team? How do you putting all this stuff in boxes and all that, with, tape dispensing, things like that, or shipping technology. So that's the, you're right. That's the progression.
But this is really important, that an owner has the mindset that not only do you need to spend money on bringing the capabilities of your team up, but you also have to get beyond the way that wages were increased, which was a annual review and a cost of living and maybe a merit increase, because what it sounds like you are doing is now paying your team members based upon what their value is to the outside world, not what an incremental increase from where they were at Pindel.
That's right, Jay. I mean, it has to be,
and that really raises your costs. So but as you say, if you are doing all the right things, the productivity outraces the costs that you incur with the labor increases.
Right. It does. And, but that's hopefully, again, made up by increasing sales, and then, increasing value output per individual. Right. So, frankly, as I look at Pindel, I feel we could be double or more the size that we are, without significantly more investments, without, really that many more team members. And, if anything, we're sales constrained. We're looking for those opportunities. When I acquired Pindel, the Mark Pindel, the prior owner, was sole sales, sole quoting, and a lot of customer service. And a tremendous amount of service to the legacy customers, but wasn't able to do a lot of new customer acquisition. We've since moved to a manufacturing rep model, which we are very, very happy with. And we see a lot of good traction, if you find the right teams there, which we have, and additionally, so, if there are any listeners out there that are looking for open capacity, please call. So honestly, I think, it's as I say to the team, with sales, anything is possible. So,
That's right.
all your wildest dreams, we can make happen with with the right level of, sales and, obviously profitability, but you want to be on that journey there.
Sales make the magic happen. I promise that we give you some time to talk about the upskilling. So you're really big into that. You're passionate about it. What is upskilling, first of all?
Okay, so upskilling. I believe that there are two different segments to let's just say the advanced manufacturing workforce. We'll hold it there, although I think it's broadly applicable across all sorts of industries. But there are two different groups. There are the training of those who are under 25 years old, and there's the training of those that are over 25 years old. If you are under 25 years old, you are still in that world where you are willing to take out student loans. You are willing to invest, go to school based on those student loans, with the assumption that you will find a good job that uses those skills afterward. You're willing to go to school in the typical, full-time, legacy schoolhouse, industrial schoolhouse model of, whatever sort of, 8 to 3, right there smack in the middle of, industry productivity hours. But, that's the sort of characteristics that are unique to someone that's under 25 years old. Once you get over 25 years old, you have car payments, house payments, kids. You're not going to get that demographic taking out more debt to pay for their own education with jobs on the come, and not be able to work basically, most of the time while they are going to school. And so I think as a society, the pendulum is swinging, and we're starting to get much more sort of the industrial arts, advanced manufacturing for that under 25 group. But the over 25, it is not, I believe, we're not as a society serving them well. And that is the portion of the population that I think we need to create paths for upskilling to increase the skills that they already have, or create different pathways to move someone maybe from shipping that wants to go into manufacturing, or increase their shipping skills, or increase their machining skills, whatever it is. And what I think needs to happen in the future is we need to figure out a different upskilling model. And I've ideas and been working with their Milwaukee Chamber of Commerce, MMAC, on some different ways to create it here first. But we need to have ways that the skills are industry led, they're industry paid. Not to say there can't be training grants, state training grants, and various public support for the work that industry needs to do to upskill the population, and sort of throughout a career shift those skills, because the CMM operator skills of 15 years ago are vastly different from the ones they're going to require now to move forward. So industry led, industry paid. I think we're in the era of the shared economy. And so I actually don't think that the physical schoolhouses of technical colleges and such are the best places to administer those skills. I think you've got, in this sort of shared economy world, I could envision upskilling courses being, offered by one company, training tools provided by another, instructor provided by a third, and ideally a curriculum that might be certified or credentialed by a technical college, so that those individuals going through the training, maybe they can stack these credentials over time and move towards an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree, and maybe later on into engineering or things like that. But let's say you're paying for, if I wanted to pay, send someone. The challenge is that the big guys, the IBMs, the GEs, the those folks, they can have all the in-house training they want.
Right.
And, GE, we had Crotonville and all these advanced management courses and all of that. But you talk small, medium-sized enterprises like, mine and other machining companies, it is really suboptimal to train your own people because number one, I'm losing the productivity of the person getting the training. And then typically it's a one-on-one training of someone else I'm losing the productivity for. So you're losing this
Right.
It's expensive to do it. But if we can create this other model, I'd love to be able to send someone to, more advanced machining skills. Maybe they're going to, a company right down the street with a instructor that's, contracted to come in and talk. And, their metrology tools are being provided by, training tools being provided by another company, and for whatever the fee, let's just say it's, $100 a day or something like that. The company that provides the facility, okay, they get 10% of that fee. The training tool company, they get another 10%. The instructor, they're getting 20% of the fee. But you have a class of, 15 students for a week coming from all these different places. And we're the industry, we're leading the curriculum. We're paying for it because it benefits us to have that person elevated in their skill set.
Right.
And so, that's one. I don't want to jump to the solution, but the bigger thing is to recognize that we have a challenge. We have a gap because technology is moving fast. It's not just advanced manufacturing. It's, it could be, how do you increase someone's Excel pivot table skills so they can do more data analytics in their office job? There are all these, as a society, we need to figure out how we take that older than 25-year-old population and provide a lifetime of different pathways that they can pursue that are going to benefit industry, but they really benefit that person as well. So that's my little spiel on upskilling and talent development.
The mindset that you have just put forth is one that's not, and it has not been common in manufacturing, but I think it's, again, moving more towards that. And that's the trust that you have to have in the other shop owner. If you're bringing your team over there and you belong to PMPA, I believe.
Yep. And they're known for trusting other members. And so we might be unique in that way, but yes.
Well, can you just talk a little bit about PMPA and that trust? Because it sounds like perhaps those are some specific manufacturing tools that you've picked up within that organization.
Yeah, so PMPA, Precision Machine Products Association, it's the industry association for, sort of advanced, the precision machining world. So multi-spindle to advanced CNC. Miles Free is the executive director. Mike Reeder, Precision Plus, is the president. It's national, and it is known for being this great, so collaborative group, organizing technical conferences, management conferences, regular interactions, great listservs of, case in point, we had this ventilator push going on. Well, we didn't have all the gauges we needed. There was so many, exotic threads going on these different ventilator parts. So I went on the PMPA listserv for the quality listserv, and I said, "Hey, any machine shop owners have this?" Yep.
What is a listserv for the listeners who don't know?
Okay, so a listserv is, once you are registered in the listserv, you can send an email to the listserv address, which then distributes that email, on a individual basis or a daily aggregation or a weekly aggregation to all the other members of the listserv. So they, all the members of the PMPA quality listserv will receive my question, let's just say within minutes. And, they can then answer. They can answer me individually, or they can answer the listserv. And the example here with the ventilator parts was, we didn't have these gauges. I put the query out to the, the PMPA quality listserv, and I think maybe the CEO, and within 2 days had 3 shops coming back saying, hey, I've got that gauge. Maybe it's calibrated, maybe it's not calibrated, but
Right.
I'll put it in a FedEx, box. It'll be at your place tomorrow. And no
That's
charge.
amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean no charge. Of course, I'm going to return it calibrated to them with a thank you note and probably a gift card. To say, hey, you saved our bacon there. Thank you for that. And that goes a little bit to that shareable economy. I say this idea to the PMPA. It would be awesome if there was a centralized database of the gauges that each one of the member companies had, because God, there are a gazillion of them, and we're not using them all, and maybe they're useful to someone else. Again, it's sort of the Uber model of how do you access untapped capacity.
And this gets to the digitization that is happening in manufacturing, because sooner or later, all those gauges are going to be put into a database, and then those databases will become more standard databases, and then you will be able to globally search those and not necessarily have to buy a new one, but to borrow, as you described, from someone who isn't using it. It's just sitting on the shelf.
Well, Jay, you have a great entrepreneurial pedigree. Let's work on that idea of monetizing that. Because if you put the database together and you have all these different shops, register what are their gauges in it, you could have a needy machine shop go into that. You attach a fee to it, both to the shop that gets to rent out their gauge, and to the central organizations coordinating the database. It's sort of like an Airbnb of quality gauges. So when you're done with paperless parts, we'll work on that.
Well, there's plenty of folks listening, and if you want to jump on it right now, go for it, because I think you got your first customer in Bill.
There we go.
Before we go here, one thing that is very clear is you are incredibly intentional and deliberate in what you do. And do you think about things in that way, or is that just who you are, or what sort of tools do you use to go about being intentional?
I guess that I've always been intentional about stuff. You want to serve, be part of have a goal, have an objective, whether it was in the SEAL teams, whether the GE, or, I had an ambition of acquiring a precision machining company, acquiring a company, I didn't have any specifics around it, way back when I was in the Navy and business school. But when you go on that, when you have that ambition, you got to fill in the details, how are you going to get the skill set to do well at it, and how are you going to get the capital? And so it's a journey in the interim. So I think always intentional there. I would say my sort of knowing myself, one of my challenges is I probably really need an executive assistant to, if you do my personality profile, I'm much higher on the autonomy, the drive, the forward thinking, but my attention to detail is off the charts low. But are you going to work on your strengths? Are you going to work on your weaknesses? I'd rather build the team around, my weakness, someone else's strength. So
I like to say, amplify your strengths, protect your weaknesses. And I will definitely give a plug for an executive assistant. They help us who are lax on the details make sure we don't make those mistakes that or cost us money, make us look bad.
Right.
So it's a critical partner, and I definitely encourage you to look at that and maybe even start with a virtual one.
True.
One thing before we go,
Yep.
would like if you could share with the listeners what got you through buds. And I thought that was really, it's something that is applicable to everyday life for everyone, I think.
Yeah, sure, oh, sure. And actually, a good buddy of mine is a columnist for production machining, and just Matt Kirkner just a month ago wrote a column on this little piece of advice of mine. The title of the column was "It's Meant to Make You Quit," and it was a column about how to adapt Bud's SEAL training thinking to advanced manufacturing in this sort of COVID, challenged era. But going back in Bud's, there's 6 weeks in, there's Hell Week, and it's 6 days, nights of always cold, always wet. You get 2 hours of sleep sometime Wednesday in that six day period. So sometime 2 hours sleep out in the middle somewhere. And it's meant to make you quit because they're trying to weed out who they want to have to, further train to enter the community. And the insight that I had there was, if I looked at my classmates that, when you quit, you ring the bell 3 times. And the instructors are devious and carrying this bell down to the surf zone and making it incredibly easy to quit, and offering hot chocolate and donuts if you do quit. So they're really messing with your mind. But what I found was that those classmates who quit were the ones that took their present discomfort and they extrapolated it all the way to the end of the week. And they said, there is not a chance I'm going to be able to keep up this kind of discomfort, this kind of pain for 4 more days or 5 more days or 3 more days. But the mental trick that I found was powerful was that they, you get fed, 5 times a day, through the night and all that stuff. So, there isn't food deprivation, just sleep and other, but you get fed. And so my, personal motto was make it to the next meal. So, don't extrapolate to the end of the week, just deal with your present reality, make it to the next meal. And, after that, make it to the meal after that. And I thought I share that with my kids. I say, if you, homework or exams or whatever it is, okay, just make it to the next meal or the next afternoon or the next day. Don't, again, extrapolate. And frankly, I'd say it applies, as much to those of us in, manufacturing in this period right now where the article came out in the Times just this morning with GDP down 30% or something like that in Q2, record low oil and gas prices, COVID, hobbled demand, all of this, I think, for my peers and the advice I take for myself is, okay, let's do the equivalent of making it to the next meal. Let's not, extrapolate, cash flow challenges, sales challenges. Let's do today what we can do today and not get caught in our head that it's, the end of the world or, the end of the manufacturing dream that you've always harbored. So hope that's helpful, mental trick there.
Well, I think it is. It's, you just put your head down and get it done and focus on what's in front of you and what you can control. And doesn't mean you're not thinking about the future and the different scenarios, but you can't dwell on them.
Right.
Yeah. Well, this was so much fun chatting with you. I
awesome.
love how you're approaching running your own company. Congratulations. It's been a while now, but you're still in the middle of it. Sounds like you have a lot more that you want to do. Anything else you want to share and anything we didn't cover that you want to get out there?
No, I'm a big believer in collaboration and teamwork. So, a lot of you have a lot of listeners in the manufacturing job shop industry. So I just say, you're not alone in the trench. So reach out to others. Could be as simple as a coffee, or as much as joining an industry group or something like that, because it does get lonely in the ownership seat. There stuff you want to share, don't want to share. There aren't others you can necessarily confide in. I've been fortunate. Mark Pindel, who sold me the company, still is staying in touch. We talk a couple of times a month. His name's still above the door. And so that's been nice, because of all the people in the company, he's the only one that's, sat in that leadership seat. So that would be just a piece of advice to other listeners.
I think it's great advice, and I really encourage folks to get involved and to find peers where you can have the conversations. So helpful.
Awesome.
All right. Well, really appreciate your time today. So much for the listeners to take away. And what I think I heard over and over is that you have a plan, you got a mission, and bite off the small chunks to accomplish it. So thanks for sharing some of those nuggets and getting into the approach and the mindsets that you use to make it. How can people reach you?
With COVID and ventilators and all that, I've really realized the power of LinkedIn. So, pulling my name off of your podcast description down below and popping into LinkedIn and sending a message. Otherwise, Bill B, BILLB at Pindel.com. So any of those, and happy to engage. So, I think, we're all, trying to accomplish the mission and take care of the people. So we're all in it together.
Good stuff. And you, the listener, hope you had some relevant takeaways today. How can you be a part of upskilling your people, both in the shop and hopefully within your community? And are you willing to pay someone to learn and then pay them more once they've learned it? It's a really critical mindset, but I think it'll pay off for you. Until next time, keep those spindles turning and those lasers cutting. Have a wonderful day.